Okay, so next stage on this project is replacing some of the interior door panels with diamond plate aluminum. And that's because the cloth combination type stuff on these gets nasty with age. And you can kind of see how that's never really going to get clean. Now, one of the things I found out is the upper sections of those are kind of integrated with the window seals. I guess they were kind of glued in and then the window seals were put in. So removing that upper edge is not something I'm going to wrestle with. The panels themselves, though, are kind of a cardboard with a little insulation, a little foam composite, that sort of a thing. And basically the way this works is I'm getting some relatively standard dimension aluminum plate and I'm tracing my stuff with a marker. I'm going to set this up where the diamonds face on the outside, so all of my markings are going to be on the inside. Now once I get a marking here, I'm going to use a conventional table saw with carbide blade to make the cuts. And you can do that with a conventional table saw. It's just very loud. It's kind of a hassle when you do that, but it's not overly difficult. You basically work with diamond plate aluminum the way you would work with wood. And the only difference is that when I go to make jigsaw cuts for the door handles, I'm still going to use a metal cutting blade on the jigsaw. But for cutting the sheet, you basically you would use a carbide tip wood blade on that. It's loud. It's pretty sharp to deal with. You want to work your edges after you've cut it, but that's pretty much how it goes. You take your original panels off, and we make these out of the aluminum. And then for the time being, I'm going to use self-tapping screws to hold those in place. And again, on tracing your pieces, we're flipping this stuff around. You want to make absolutely certain that you're not going to, by accident, make a mirror image of the part that you're trying to create. So. So there you can see I'm using a regular carbide tip wood blade to cut the aluminum. Now I've used this blade on a few other jobs. It's going to get gummed up. So this blade, it's still sharp enough to work with, but if I'm going to do fine furniture lumber cuts on furniture grade plywood, I'm going to have to switch over to a new blade. But that's basically what we're talking about when it comes to cutting our shapes. Now we end up with a little galling on the edges. You've got to be careful because this stuff's going to be sharp. Dress that up with preferably a sander, not a grinder. Preferably a belt sander. If you don't have one, you go ahead and use a grinder, but this stuff's going to gum up in a grinder. So I forgot to bring my handheld belt sander, but I'm going to look around some of my stuff. There might be something here that's going to work. But generally speaking, you want to use a sander to touch up aluminum, not a grinder. If all you have handy is a grinder, just expect to gum up the grinding wheel when you do it. What else to understand when getting these door panels off, now we've got screws, we've got these little push-in things, and then for whatever reason there's a rivet down here. Just understand that pulling these old style panels off is a one-way trip. You can see how that one's in. I really like the way they look with the bare metal. Now that's kind of temporary. I want to be able to replace that with different screws that don't stick out as much, but mainly what we've been checking here is fit, which I would call good but not wonderful. Not really something I'd feel comfortable charging a client full price for, but something I feel good enough to own myself. And that's kind of like the way some of the little measurements are ending up. And that's why proof of concept prototyping tends to be just not as clean as production model on stuff. But it's still going to be highly functional. The other thing is I'm working on a few different designs for what the little armrest door handle is going to be. Because this is a pretty compact front to this vehicle, the reality is most people are going to put their elbow up on the window edge, and unless it's really, really damn cold out, you're going to roll down the window, put your arm up there. So not having an armrest down below is not much of a loss. However, I do want to have some sort of a handle to pull the door shut, and I'm thinking, something on a rope or parachute cord anchored in. I've got a lot of room on that surface that gives me the ability to anchor stuff in, but for whatever reason, maybe somebody's working on the door or something like that, that panel had come off before, and this one not. And the way this stuff is, I guess you want to keep it for something, I don't know what. But these doors are, it's actually relatively thick metal, but this is also an opportunity you would have to maybe go through, shore up any welding or reinforcement on this, maybe stick some Kevlar panels under there. Just remember, you've got to have room for the movement of the window. So there we are going in. Basically going to be doing a diamond plate aluminum interior on the back of this, but the cargo area is going to get kind of a complex overland camper type setup, so I'm not going to do the aluminum on much of that until I've got the layout sorted out on what's going to be going in there. But the rear panels, I wanted to get rid of those filthy original OEM panels that were kind of getting some mildew and some of that type of stuff, and obviously this is never going to mildew. I wanted to do kind of a camouflage or subdued paint job to match the rest of the vehicle. It's just that this diamond plate looked pretty good just in a natural state, natural polished, semi-polished look. Looks so good I almost don't want to mess with it. And so we put this panel in. For some reason I was running into some thicker material across the bottom, so the screws probably end up having to go a little higher up, but I busted off a drill bit and was messing stuff up, so I'm going to pull that off, check my positioning, and redo those. But it's a moderate cost upgrade on the interiors of these troopers when they get old, to just pull all of that cardboard composite stuff out and replace it with diamond plate aluminum. Use the original pieces as a tracing pattern, and you're good to go.